in Romans 9, 6 through 16, we're continuing to encounter Paul's defense of the integrity and the goodness of God through the doctrine of election. It's called a theodicy, a vindication of the character of God. And what the Apostle Paul is proving in this section is that election is the greatest manifestation of the mercy of God towards sinners. It's the most merciful thing that he elects. And he's using all kinds of examples. He uses 3 generations, Abraham, and then Isaac and Ishmael, and then Jacob and Esau. And then he turns to Pharaoh to prove also the goodness of election. And election is not fair because election assumes that God chooses those who don't deserve it. And he's proving that there's no one more merciful than God. He saves the people who hate him. Now, election is not new in Romans. In Romans 8:28 and 29, the doctrine was introduced. And he says there, and we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. For whom he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. And so Romans 8 ends really with God's favor toward the elect. And in 8:33, he says, who will bring a charge against God's elect? It's God who justifies. The doctrine of election runs from the beginning to the end of the Bible. But the truth about election is that God saves sinners who do not deserve it. And what's so important that we understand is that it is God who appoints to salvation. Man cannot do it on his own. The Baptist Confession on election, on effectual calling, chapter 10, reads like this: in God's appointed and acceptable time, he is pleased to call effectually by his word and spirit those he has predestined to life. He calls them out of their natural state of sin and death to grace and salvation by Jesus Christ. He enlightens their minds spiritually and savingly to understand the things of God, and he takes away their heart of stone. Well, it goes on and on describing how wonderful it is that God is an electing God. And so what should we say about all of this? First of all, rejoice in your dependence. We're dependent on God for our salvation. We could not have turned our own hearts around, but he did. And this should just cause us to adore the sovereignty of God in salvation. And the second thing is rest in God's grace. No one deserved to be saved. And in God's mercy, he forgives. And if you're wondering, could a holy God ever forgive you or me? Have you gone too far? Are you hopeless? No. God is a God of mercy, and he elects and changes our hearts. What a blessing it is. The grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of our God stands forever.
Scripture Applied is a production of Church and Family Life. Visit churchandfamilylife.com for more resources.